afternoon, everyone. Thank you for tuning in and a very warm welcome to Lamudi The Outlook 2020. My name is Deborah, your moderator for the first panel, Revive, Property Investment in a Post-Pandemic World. Now, as the COVID-19 pandemic continues to have a profound impact on us globally, there are implications of how the virus will affect the ways we work, live, and invest. Now, today's panel will be focused on investments in Philippine real estate in particular. And as the situation evolves, we want to know, first of all, how the post-pandemic world is shaping up in terms of real estate investments. Second, where the new opportunities have emerged. And thirdly, what is the best course for property seekers during these times? Joining me today are four known leaders from the industry, and I'm very pleased to be introducing the first of our four panelists. We have Franco Soberano, EVP and COO of Cebu Landmasters, Inc., a leading local real estate developer with over 50 developments in Visayas and Mindanao. Franco, thank you for joining us today. Next, we also have, also from the South, Cary Lagdameo, First Vice President of Damosa Land, Inc. Damosa Land is a homegrown developer in Davao with residential, commercial, and industrial developments. Cary, thank you for joining us today. Now, introducing our third panelist, we have Mico Racelis, Business Unit General Manager of Robinson's Homes. Robinson's Homes is one of the four brands under Robinson's Land Corporation, offering value for money horizontal developments nationwide. Mico, thank you for joining us today. Now, last but definitely not the least, we have Julius Guevarra, VP for Corporate Planning from DM Wenceslao, an integrated property developer, best known for its flagship development, Asiana City in Manila. Julius, thank you for joining us today and being on this panel. All right, so that's a quick introduction of our panelists today. And to kick off today's session, addressing investor activity as a whole, perhaps let's start off with Franco of Cebu Landmasters. Franco, we've spoken with Joe previously, or Cebu Landmasters, at the start of the lockdown when the outbreak first hit Manila. Now, Cebu Landmasters was one of the first to speak about their reaction on the market. And it's September right now, so we're in the third quarter of 2020. Franco, tell us a little bit, what has been your observation so far, especially with investors' activity, and how has things changed since March?
Yeah, thank you for that, Deborah. Yeah, I can't believe it's been 5 months since the height of the lockdown. It's really been that fast, and a lot has definitely happened. We reported that Cebu Landmasters actually achieved a record reservation sales at the height of the pandemic. This not only came as a surprise for us, but it was really a surprise even from our sellers. There is really a rush to secure homes, secure good quality homes from good developers. And we're seeing that sustain. So let's say in March, April, there was still some confusion or some kind of hesitation. But starting May, there was really a strong demand for homes. And one of the triggers for that was us as developers making it easier for buyers to learn about our products, making it more accessible to own homes. So Cebu Landmasters, along with, I believe, several of our peers in the industry, have made terms more affordable by stretching down payment terms. So meaning we're carrying more cost of money, but giving that convenience and comfort to our buyers. So it's now September, and from our experience, we're happy to note that the demand is sustained or even growing. However, one challenge we face are permitting, right? Of course, the focus of the LGUs now are to secure our constituents, which is very important. But we're seeing a small slowdown in getting permits. We want to launch projects, but the focus of LGUs, I think LGUs are now starting to reopen to support businesses, and we're looking forward to more activity and support in that sense.
All right, thank you, Franco. You mentioned a little bit making things more accessible, and I would like to deep dive into that later on. But for now, perhaps let's get a view from a different geography. Mico, walk us through a little bit. How has been your observation of investor activity, and how are things moving for you?
Actually, similar to what Franco said, initially at the onset of the lockdown, which was around March and April, basically almost all operations on our end, whether sales and marketing or on the site, actually ceased. We really prioritized basically the protocols that we had to put in place with regards to safety, both with our employees and our partners. But starting, actually for us, it started around June and it sustained up till now, actually, that our sales have been growing as well. So we started 2020 in the first quarter very well, and then there was basically a long lull from March to May. And then from June up till now, we've also fortunately experienced the same trend that Franco mentioned, and it's also growing. So I guess in a sense, this is the first reflex of the market in terms of what the lockdown has caused everybody in terms of whether it's physical, psychological, or emotional restrictions. And that's really being the driver for the shift in interest at the very least, and eventually some of them eventually going into purchases actually into homes, into horizontal developments. So yeah, we've been seeing that, and we've also trying to make that easier for the buyers and the customers by reaching out to them. So this is with regards to technology and also augmenting whatever parts of our operations that we can to bridge that gap given the physical restrictions. So hopefully this will continue. It's been positive so far, and hopefully the government's efforts with regards to containing this, and well, actually I wouldn't say containing this, but managing this as best as we can will continue and hopefully improve in the coming months. Yeah.
Thanks, Mico, for that. You mentioned growth from June until now. Any numbers you have to share with us?
I don't have the specific numbers right now, but based on what we were having in Q1, we're experiencing right now anywhere from 25 to 70% growth on a monthly basis. So it's actually coming from a low base, basically since March to May. Our sales were really down, almost 90%, but it's picked up so far, and it's in continuing to do so. So hopefully we can maintain this pace, and we're doing efforts to actually help sustain it.
Thank you, Mico. Interesting insights over there. So from what our panelists have been saying so far, from Mico and Franco, lockdown measures initially froze the real estate markets temporarily, but interest seems to have resurfaced right now, right? Is this right to say? Cary, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, hi, Deborah. I think, well, it's good to see that our experiences are not very different from what Mico and Franco were experiencing. And of course, during the first few months of the lockdown, I think aside from people just trying to wait and see what was going to happen, a lot of the developers, I think, were shying away from doing a lot of marketing because we all felt that it was really not the appropriate time to really go out there and sell real estate. But then as we moved along and we were getting into the end of April and into May, we felt that we could slowly start talking about our projects and start selling our projects slowly, especially online. And so we were also pleasantly surprised because we were actually expecting the worst in terms of sales. But then what we saw was that there was really an interest, especially in horizontal projects. Our vertical projects were also doing relatively okay. But to be honest, in terms of total sales, the horizontal projects were actually taking over the vertical projects. So I think that's pretty normal across a lot of developers across the country. And you know, one other thing that we noticed was that at least the sales were, or they are sustained month on month now. Because when we got into June, we thought maybe there was just some pent up sales or pent up demand, and by July and August we wouldn't see any more good traction. But what we're seeing is that month on month from July from June and August from July, there has been steady increases in sales. So I mean, we're hoping that we've seen the worst of it. It also shows that I think the buyers are a lot more sophisticated now. They see that they see the importance of real estate as an investment. So hopefully we can sustain this going into the end of the year.
Thank you, Cary. Maybe I'll move on to Julius a little bit. Julius, on behalf of DM Wenceslao, what are your observations right now of how the investor market is doing?
Okay, so early on, back in March, of course, like, we were expecting the worst. We were anticipating that, like there would be backouts that would be increasing. But at this point in time, sales have been very resilient. They were not as bad as we were first anticipating. And we're sustaining the levels of sales that, of course, it's not as good as it was months before the pandemic. But we are experiencing some movement in sales. And of course, we had to adjust in the manner of our marketing and sales. We've, I guess this is a similar experience among not just in real estate, but across the board. That digital transformation has been forced upon us. We were doing some of that prior to the crisis, but it's really something that we had to do very quickly. And it was a good thing that, just by chance that we started to explore some of these solutions prior to the pandemic. And we quickly implemented these solutions, once it was obvious that we had to really pursue them.
Thanks, Julius. I think what you mentioned about, digital transformation, as we call it, also aligns with our observation in the market, right? So could you tell us a little bit more about what you call digital transformation? What have you, as a developer, been doing, some of your efforts, if you could share?
Okay, so, maybe let's start on the operational side. Before the pandemic, last year, we already started implementing, like solutions such as Office 365 or, some other solutions that allowed us to really swiftly shift towards a work from home kind of environment seamlessly. We also did some, cloud-based solutions for ERP. So those are on the operational side. But before the pandemic, we started to explore online payment solutions. And, once COVID actually started to take hold, that's when we, really pursued it and we implemented it right away. Now it's online. Of course, we did expand our presence on social media with ads and boosting and, some related stuff. And also, we also expanded our presence on digital listing sites. And that actually has helped us tremendously, really increase the number of leads that we have.
Thank you, Julius. I take it back to Cary, actually. Cary, you touched on this very briefly earlier on. You said, and Franco seemed to agree, you said there wasn't a thought to pause marketing and then to get it restarted. Walk us through a little bit your approach to this and what actually happened.
I think in the first few months, I'd say around March to April, we would be, doing light marketing, meaning we would join webinars. We would have our own, even our own webinars as well. We would talk about our CSR efforts and things like that, just to make sure that our name was out there, that people wouldn't forget about who we are, or at the same time that they would see us doing good things. And as I mentioned, CSR. So I think it's also important that in the buyer's eyes, that they see that the developers are being socially responsible and they're being very active in the community. So that's kind of what we did in the first, I'd say, 2.5 months. Come May, then we really became very active on social media and in promoting our projects themselves. And similar to some of the other digital initiatives that Julius was mentioning, for instance, we were able to do a lot of virtual staging for our projects. So we couldn't do physical photo shoots and physical staging. So a lot of our home units were being virtually staged. And so in a matter of, a day or two, we were able to come up with brand new content for old projects and, put these out on social media. So that was some of the early initiatives that we did. Now that we're into August, we're able to do a little bit more. We're able to do physical shoots. We're able to do kind of like broker guided tours and things like that. And now we've put them all into this new initiative we call Damosa Land 360, which is an online platform on our website where we feature all of our projects from our residential, commercial, industrial, and even our mixed-use projects. And you can have virtual tours, we have guided tours, we even have lifestyle videos. So it's kind of trying to showcase our projects from all different angles and not just from the project perspective.
Thank you, Cary. I want to take this conversation to Mico, actually. Mico, as a developer of largely horizontal developments, a lot of people expect that transition to, to happen a bit later. Can you walk us through a little bit, Mico, what your journey has been for Robinson's Homes?
Same to what my peers have said. We've tried to shift a lot of our contact with our customers online. So whether that's through social media or through Teams meetings, as what we do here internally and also with our branch offices, it's just really more of what we had before is seemingly not optimized to what we need now, being the restrictions brought about by the pandemic. But we've also innovated in terms of how we can reach out to them in terms of this remote arrangement that we have right now. So we're actually creating tools to do that. Like, for example, we've started doing drone shots for all of our provincial developments. So not only for our buyers locally who do not have the means to really visit the site, especially for our properties that are a bit on the more higher end. But those drone shots, aside from the virtual reality tools and the walkthroughs and the AVPs that we have, is really forcing us to change the ways where we can make connections with them. So in that sense, we're really forced to make those changes and innovate. But we're doing so, and our customers have been responding. But I'm sure there's still so much more that we can do, because this is really just basically a quarter out of the lockdown. So everybody's still adjusting, everybody's still finding their way around and adapting as fast as they can. But I'm sure there's so much more change and pioneering new activities and programs moving forward for everyone.
Agree, and thank you, Mico, for sharing that. Now, on the topic of efforts, of course, as we understand, it's always guided by the property seeker, right? So maybe jumping to Franco, let's deep dive into demand, right? Franco, tell us a little bit, given the pandemic, how have you observed investors' expectations change over the last 6 months?
Yeah, I would like to first share that the market that has been very active or very busy is the affordable market. These are the markets where houses or condo units will be selling from 1.5 million to around 3 to 4 million. I think this market is the majority of our demographic, the Philippine market, the labor force, and this is the market that has probably realized the urgency of why owning a home and investing is more urgent now than ever before. Because where have we spent the last 5 months? Maybe 90% in the home, or in more relaxed areas, 50%. So I think that's the market where the demand from our side is, right? I mean, 1.5 to 3 million. So these are townhouses, mid-rise condos, and we're very pleased that these are coming from a lot of the regional markets, like regions like again, De Oro, Davao, of course, Iloilo, Bacolod, Dumaguete, practically the regional centers of the Philippines. Because these regional centers, I think, are the first that will bounce back from the crisis, and this is where a lot of the working population is located. So that's all I can say about the demand so far. So as far as the high end, where Cebu Landmasters also has projects, one of the promising statistics that we've seen is that a lot of investors or buyers have held on to their units. We've experienced less than 2% of cancellation. So buyers have retained, these are the 150 to 250,000 per square meter condo units. And very happy to note that people are holding on to their units because values have remained. I mean, why would I give up my unit that has doubled in value appreciation there? So there is value there. And it's about the communication with the buyers. Do you want us to restructure your payments? Where can we help? Where can we be of service? And I think the last thing, to sustain demand, we as developers have to show our performance, right? In the last 5 months, Cebu Landmasters has continued constructing. We've been communicating with buyers that their investments are being protected because we've continued constructing at the best level we can.
Interesting insights. Thank you, Franco. Now, you mentioned, well, of course, your portfolio covers horizontal, vertical. Is there any particular shift that you have seen? Some say that there's a preference moving towards horizontal right now.
Well, interestingly, neutral, meaning we've seen one of our condo projects in the city of Cagayan de Oro sell out in June. We're talking about 800 units. So that's a condo unit. These are majority studio units, because I've also seen a lot of reports where there's a departure from condos and moving out to the countryside. But but there's also an argument to be made where, you're a condo near all the conveniences, right? So I think it's looking at locations that are not super dense, because you have good condo developments that are well planned and well located. So I think it's condo living is here to stay, is what I can share. And it's about the buyer really acknowledging the good sites, the well-designed sites, and of course the good value sites.
Thank you, Franco, for that. Cary, what are your thoughts on the matter? Do you agree with what Franco just mentioned?
Yeah, Franco said everything. There's nothing more to add. No, I'm just kidding.
I want to hear from Cary also.
It's really a combination of several of the things that Franco mentioned, and I do agree that that the sweet spot right now for condo projects is somewhere in that 2 to 4 million range. Our existing condo project right now is selling at about 3 to 3.5 million, and the sales, although our horizontal projects are outselling the condo project, but the sales in the condo project are still okay. And it really depends on the location. I mean, you can own a house outside and you can spend a lot of money on a horizontal development project. But if you're working in the city, of course, you're still going to have to live in a condominium. So the demand will still be there. I think the quality of the project will have to still be good. The developer will still have to deliver on its promises. And I think what's also extremely important right now is that the buildings have good property management, whether it's residential or commercial or industrial. I mean, you have to have a strong property management group that can make sure that your property is well taken care of, and that the people see that the property management team is there and present and cleaning all the time and providing additional services that they wouldn't normally be giving, or they normally weren't giving pre-pandemic.
Thank you, Cary. Now, jumping to Julius, I guess quite a relevant conversation to include you in over here. Aside from just property types as a whole, are there any aspects of a property, let's say amenities, for example, that you think will or has emerged as a more important consideration for buyers these days?
Yeah, sure. I think what has emerged during these pandemic times is that there's more importance in actually living in a more condensed, or I would say more mixed use design development. Like some of the urban planners have been promoting this idea of a 15-minute livable space, wherein you can find all of the amenities like shopping, your workplace, your residence in just within a 15-minute walk or a 15-minute drive. And it's something that I think it's more emerging as a more important concept these days, where you can't go out to a big mall without exposing yourself to the virus these days. So I think that plays more of a part today. So we're building like a township, a whole estate where you find it's not just a CBD, not just offices, not just big malls, not just condos. So it's a more holistic kind of development. So we're trying to promote that kind of concept to our buyers, and I think that's something that's really resonating with them. And more importantly, we're looking at how we are designing our buildings. even before all of this, one of the key tenets in our vision for ASEAN as a city was that livability and sustainability. And we've designed our buildings so that density would not be an issue. So they're very low density. There's a lot of open space. There's actually, we provide balconies in most of our units. So, there's a lot of fresh air and well ventilated. So actually these concerns have emerged recently because of the pandemic. And these are some of the things that our buyers are now looking into, and they're really, asking for this. And it's a good thing that we've highlighted this. But of course, we've consulted with our architectural consultants in terms of the best practices that they've been seeing, and we're factoring those in our future developments.
Thank you, Julius, for sharing that. So I have a question over here. Now taking a step back, looking at it from a more high-level view on how demand you think is going to evolve for the Philippine real estate market from now to the end of the year, and let's say 2021 onwards, right? How do you see demand evolving, and is there any difference between the local demand, international demand? Starting off, maybe back with Julius.
So I think there's going to be I think things will be quiet at first, right? But if you take a look at it, if you're in a position where you do really need to invest or buy your first home, or even if you're an investor, right now is actually a good time to buy. Developers have become more flexible in terms of their payment terms. There are a lot of discounts. Some are even making it they're deferring some of the payments down the road just to compel some of their buyers to make that decision. And if you're a buyer, it's really a good time to buy. If you're a first-time home buyer, now is the time to buy. And as you probably know that the BSP has actually increased the bank's limits to real estate. So they could now lend more to the real estate market, and that will actually drive down interest rates further. And as you know, interest rates are at an all-time low in terms of the policy rate. So it's really a good time for buyers to come in and make that decision. I'm pretty sure that there are good deals to be had out there, not just for condos, but the whole spectrum of real estate.
Thank you for that, Julius. So just to touch on a point a little bit, like you mentioned earlier on, for our viewers today, just over a week ago, BSP announced that it approved a measure for raising the allowed real estate loan limit to 25%. Now, this is up from the long-standing 20% ceiling. Maybe to go around for our panelists, perhaps starting with Cary. Cary, could you share with us a little bit what this means for property seekers and what we can expect perhaps on the developers' end?
Yeah, I mean, this is absolutely a welcome development. And I would say that overall, I think that the response of various government agencies for the real estate sector has been favorable. As you mentioned, the BSP lifts, they raised the cap on real estate borrowing. And also, for instance, Pag-ibig, they lowered their rates for end users. And as we know, Pag-ibig is one of the biggest lenders, especially in that affordable range, no? And so rates are, I think, in the 4% range. That's really an all-time low. So as Julius was mentioning, I mean, if you do have the money and you were considering buying a house, I mean, right now is the time to invest. So all of these moves, I think, sends a positive signal to the industry. Obviously, the banks will. I would like to think that they will continue to lend to creditworthy developers and creditworthy end users. So hopefully we can sustain this momentum going into next year and until things normalize.
Thank you, Cary. Now you mentioned the concept of lending to credible developers. I take the conversation on to Mico. What is your take on the matter, and how important is it right now to build a brand and the customer's knowledge stronger than ever?
When you initially posed the question, I was thinking both from the perspective of the investor and the end user. Actually, I think coming into 2021, I think it's just a matter of how much people will really invest into the market, but not whether they will, because it makes sense on both angles. From an investor point of view, the deals and the packages that are being offered right now by all developers, actually, regardless of what segment they're participating in, or whether it's a provincial or it's a CBD development, the deals and the packages being offered right now are very, very attractive. So if you're looking at it from that point of view, whether you intend to use it anytime soon or not, it's actually a good time to get into the market. In terms of end user, it's really driven by the need, right? So whether you need it right now, COVID or not, and whether it's because of COVID, now is also a good time because all of the developers are making it much easier for everybody to make that purchase. So whether that's in terms of price, the ease of the transaction, providing you the information and the materials that you need to make that decision. I think all stakeholders in this particular concern that we have, whether it's the banks, the governments, us as developers, and the customers, are actually we're trying to meet each other in the shortest way, in the easiest way possible. So everybody's putting in their effort to make that happen. So coming into 2021, I can't say how much, but I'm pretty sure that the market is trending that way. And whether you there's a practical need or a calculated investment aspect in terms of your approach, it makes sense for both types of buyers.
Thank you, Mico. I'll pass the question on to Franco, right? Because Mico touched a little bit on prices, especially for provincial developments. Now, Franco, CLI is present in many markets, not only just in Cebu City and in Davao. Walk us through a little bit your thoughts on the matter.
Yeah, I'm enjoying this talk, and I agree with several of my peers here. I think one common denominator from that answer on demand is it's a more end user market because there's that need, and I've seen less OFW investment, so there's more end user and slightly less OFW. So what I would foresee 2021, or the trend I would like to keep a track on, if that OFW demand will return stronger, and accompanied by a stronger end user demand. So it's us monitoring this very closely, Deborah. But at the same time, there's still many So my advice to developer friends would be to look at these other markets where there was not even enough supply to begin with. Because, example, we are launching a project in Iloilo or in Ormoc. There's not a lot of supply. So there's an opportunity to go to look at markets where there is demand but not enough to supply, and these are the safer place. Or if in case that pre-COVID demand will not come back as strong, right? So it's really spotting those opportunities.
Thank you, Franco. Yeah, interesting insights over there. Now, on the topic of prices, I do have a question with regard to, as we know, the property boom last year, right? And more particularly, let's talk about Manila, the metro, right? Perhaps a question for Julius over here. In contrast to the property boom last year, what is your take on how prices will evolve in the short, medium, and long term?
Well, I think for this year, prices will be challenging. But I think developers are, well, at least for us, right? So we're trying to maintain our prices and our price targets by making things, the payment terms more flexible, right? And reducing the down payment terms. So that kind of maintains your pricing. Because at the end of the day, what really matters to the buyer is their monthly payments. So if you can maintain the monthly payments more affordable, then at the end of the day, you can still maintain your pricing target. So prices may continue to be soft. It might be challenging for developers, but I do think that it will quickly recover moving forward once we start hearing news about the pandemic being controlled. Once every time that there's some news on the what do you call this, the trials, the vaccine trials, the market responds very positively. And I think, like once we start, seeing some solid, or hearing some solid news about this, then prices will go back to where it was before.
Thank you, Julius. I move the question on to Mico. Mico, I guess the question from buyers is, will the market correct itself? And how soon will that happen?
Definitely, I think it will correct. The question is really just when. That's the key question here. But in terms of the developers, it's really more of aligning yourself with the level of fear that the market is currently experiencing. So that fear, once it subsides, I think that will pave the way for more, I guess, activity with the developers, whether it's in terms of launches, in terms of marketing efforts, in terms of pricing and promotions. But I think that right now it's just most prudent for all of us to just take it really on a short-term basis. I can't really tell you what we're planning for on a mid to long-term perspective. We have our opinions on that, but we're holding it very flexibly. But on a near term, possibly at least within the 1 to 3 year perspective, we'd like to maintain probably our prices at the moment where they are, unless probably some major development happens in terms of vaccine that will, or regardless whether it's a vaccine or another set of protocol or another set of development that basically leads to helping the fear and the confusion subside, then I think that should help bring back buyers into the table that probably they really are in that market already, but are just waiting for the right time.
Right. Thanks for that, Mico. Mico, just a question, because you mentioned, the vaccine, right, that we're all very hopeful for. Do you think, we have other developers on the panel, do you think developers should be planning for the reception of a vaccine, or should we be planning for where we're at the moment, which is, the interim?
Well, I think for the purposes of planning, we should plan for all scenarios, right? So we're looking at measures to put in place, particularly with what Cary said earlier. I think one of the key aspects in terms of what buyers are really looking into right now is property management. So right now that we don't have that vaccine, we're just really basically doing this on a day-to-day basis, right? So a lot of value is in with property management teams that can maybe look a month ahead and put in safety protocols or measures or policies in place that will help secure the safety and the health of if it's homeowners, right? So in that sense, that's something that's really striking right now in terms of purchase considerations than, let's say, maybe a year ago. So that's something that's really there, property management. But right now, with all of the, for example, the deliveries, proper handling of goods, the movement of people, there's so many things affecting our lives right now in our home. So having these things be addressed in a way that meets your comfort level, your convenience level, and your security level is really, I guess, what will make people turn their heads in terms of what they want to look into once things get better.
Thank you, Mico. Franco, just to get your thoughts on the matter with relation to pricing, property prices, how it will evolve, and as well as planning on the developer side.
In terms of pricing, I mentioned earlier that property values have actually held steady. It's a pleasant news for us and good for our buyers. The reason why prices have held steady is because there's still demand. Meaning, if certain units have buyers have canceled, there is a new buyer that comes in and willing to take that unit at the same price level or even a little higher. And we're seeing that in several of our properties, not just in Cebu, but everywhere. So I think values will hold steady. But as far as if the record climb of property values will continue climbing, like for example in Cebu, we had a property here already reaching 300,000 per square, or speculatively 400,000 per square. I don't think that's going to go higher in the next few months or even years. So there's also an opportunity to see for in the investing market, because I think we're talking about property investment. There's also a good opportunity to position in properties that will be good bargains for a developer standpoint and for the end user standpoint. So I see this holding steady up to the end of the year, Deborah. And as for 2021-22, of course, the vaccine or us finding that stability will definitely spruce up property values 2021 onwards.
Thank you, Franco, for the insights. Cary, any thoughts that you care to share?
Yeah, so I think in the case of Davao City, you know, prices have been going up over the last few years at the very steep pace now, and I think Franco's very well aware of that because they have several projects there. So I think, you know, you have to see the silver lining, and I think the silver lining here is that with the pause in prices going up so much, this opens up the market to a wider segment. And one of the complaints that I used to hear before is that, especially from certain segments, is that, you know, we can't even afford projects in our own city. A lot of investors are taking up the units, and they're not even from our own city. So I think now with the pause and increase and certain deals that the developers are giving, the market becomes actually wider now, and so it becomes more inclusive. So I think that's probably obviously that's on the positive aspect. And later on, when things do get better, when, you know, hopefully when there's a vaccine that's going to be developed very soon, then we see prices starting to go up. Then those people who bought today will have an uptick in value for their properties that were purchased.
Thank you, Cary. Very interesting insights, and it's almost as if you read my mind, because the next question I was going to pose to the panelists has to do with a silver lining, right, amidst these pretty uncertain times. Now, back to Mico. Mico, for you right now, is there a silver lining amidst, our topic today is revive, right? Revive property investment in a post-pandemic world. So focusing on that revive, what is the silver lining for you in this situation?
Well, in terms of property investment, I think all the developers are really finding ways to make things better for the customers. So something that probably is in everybody's mind, but actually now the focus is more acute because of the restrictions brought about by the pandemic. That's one. And another thing is actually what I've noticed so far. We have 10 branches nationwide, and one thing that I've seen is that how adaptable and how flexible our employees have been in terms of moving into this new normal. So working in terms of mostly digital and marketing in non-traditional ways have really helped bring about more new ideas that we can carry on once we get to more stable footing moving forward. And also that we've seen, I guess, with more certainty, that the market for end use for houses, horizontal, is actually very healthy. So even despite this what's happening right now, the interest is actually growing pa. So moving into 2021, maybe some people who weren't actually in the market into horizontal, because most of the interest has traditionally been with CBDs, or for example in high-rise condominiums. They're now actually broadening their scope in terms of what's out there and what's probably of interest to them, not only in terms of affordability, but also in terms of pushing the right buttons in terms of quality of life, space, convenience, all of those things. So it's basically opening a new perspective from the side of the developer, from the side of the banks and the employees, the customers. So in that sense, I think there's as they say, you know, when they close a door, a window opens, something like that. So I think that's the silver lining with any crisis, no? So everybody will adapt, everybody will find new ways and better ways of doing things. And we're experiencing that right now within the company, within Robinsons, not only Robinsons Homes, but the whole Robinsons Land company. And also on the ground, at the branches, with our partners, with our contractors, with our customers. So yeah, it's probably not shining as brightly right now, but it's there. And we'll probably see more of it in the coming months when hopefully a lot of this subsides.
Thank you, Mico, and definitely agree. In times of in times of trouble, that's when new opportunities arise, right? Okay, I'll move on to Franco. Franco, what is your silver lining amidst this current situation?
Yeah, and I agree with Mico. I think because of this crisis, everyone is leveling up their game. And who will benefit from that? It's really the buyer, the homeowner. Many developers have already practiced good open spaces, have offered very nice amenities, design buildings with good architecture. But we ask ourselves now, is this enough? I mean, will this protect our buyers from future health crisis? And that's the silver lining I see. My message to my people is, can you work a little harder? Can we work a little better? Everybody's thinking that way, and it's going to be our buyers that will benefit from that. And another silver lining I see for us developers or even property investors is that there's really a big premium for real estate investing. People know that the home is the most secure part of where we need to be in times of crisis. So there is that urgency to own, and then so our part as developers is to address that well and not be content to do things the same way. And we have to do things better.
Thank you, Franco. From what you're saying, is it right to say that you think buyers are better positioned to land a good investment right now amidst a pandemic?
Yes, definitely because of more affordable terms. Developers are also coming up with more green, more healthy spaces to live in. And as I said, there's a big premium in looking at mixed-use developments where you have all the conveniences on one roof. And even looking at technology, where we're looking at equipping all our units with fiber optic connectivity even before they move in. So we're already adjusting to that and spending a little more so that our buyers can benefit more.
Thank you, Franco, for the insights. Julius, to get your thoughts on this, what is your silver lining in the situation? Asiana is a mixed-use development.
Yeah, well, I'd like to echo what Franco just said, that ultimately it's the buyer who's going to be benefiting from all this. So as developers, we're going back to our designs, to our plans, and assessing whether or not the buyers would still continue to buy our products. For example, like I don't think that 50 units to a floor would sell moving forward for the next 3 to 5 years, just because of the effects of this pandemic. So we're going back to the drawing board, making sure that we're designing our products well, making sure that we minimize high touch areas of our developments, making sure that there are ante rooms or vestibules for our disinfecting areas. So ultimately, as I mentioned earlier, the payment terms right now are very, very attractive to the buyer. So I think it's a good time for buyers, and once developers realize that and craft a perfect package for the buyers will come back to purchase homes. Now, on a more corporate level, I think the good thing about this pandemic is that it really forced the digital transformation, made us all more creative in actually using the technology that is now available to us. Also as a business development guy, this pandemic really forced us to get off our assets and not just rest on our laurels and just do the same kind of thing year after year, looking at new business ideas that will bring us, through this pandemic and onwards. So I think there's a lot of good that we are now experiencing through this pandemic.
Thank you, Julius. And it looks like the rest of the panel agrees. It's really it's been a catalyst, right, for us to move forward with digital transformation. All right, then thank you everyone for your insights thus far. Now, I want to segue into a Q&A segment. Now, we've received 2 questions from the audience that have come in live for our panelists today. Now, the first question comes from a seller. All right, the question is, do you have any advice for brokers and agents on how to move ahead during the pandemic? Should I continue to advertise or should I pause and wait? Now, perhaps, Cary, let's start with you because you touched on this a little bit with the start and stop of marketing. What are your thoughts and advice for this for the seller?
No, I think now, absolutely. I mean, go out and sell. Especially if you're acute to selling online. I mean, as what we can see from a lot of the developers that have announced over the last few months, their online sales have basically skyrocketed. And, these are in particular segments. So, I mean, if you're a broker, I think, we're well into August. I think it's okay to go out there and sell the product. Just be in close contact with the developers just to make sure that you have the latest material, that you have the latest pricing. And I think that the developer will really support all the efforts of the brokers. I mean, now more than ever, there's going to really be a good relationship between seller and developer. So definitely now is the right time to go out there and sell.
All right, so Cary gives the green light. Perhaps Mico, Rob Holmes has an extensive network nationwide, right? What advice would you give to this seller?
I would give the green light as well. As I think all of us know, all of us have been experiencing, there's basically been, although it's really been a silent frenzy because all of it is online. All of it is in different platforms, no? But basically, there's a lot of buzz online brought about by the pandemic that people are starting questioning things that they probably didn't question. So now they're thinking, oh, should I probably get a lot right now as opposed to buying something else? Should I go transfer to a house and lot right now? Should I shift from renting to buying? Everything right now is basically up in the air. So with all of that opportunity, and you have the developers helping the customers get to that point, it's really an opportune time for sellers to be active as well. So you have both sides of the equation, wanting to learn new things, asking questions, and the other side is doing everything they can to meet the customers. So you as a seller should be active as well. So it's just about finding yourself in the right platform where those two are. And then I'm sure it's going to be beneficial for you whether you're selling nationwide or just selling one project.
Thank you, Mico. Okay, Cary says a strong yes. Mico says it's an opportune time to be out there selling. Franco, share with us your thoughts on this.
Yeah, green light to sell Damosa, Robinson's Homes, and my friend Bud's products of DM Wenceslao. Green light, of course, Cebu Landmasters. Yeah, of course, sellers, I think developers now are very connected. And I think it's, as a seller, really understanding the offers that are out there, really understanding the product and the needs of your potential buyers. I mean, do they prefer the urban comforts? They prefer the countryside comforts, but within closer vicinity to the urban center? I think it's the sellers doing their research, and from the developer side, having that support mechanism of providing data, helping to close transactions, and of course, providing the support.
Thank you, Franco. Now, last but not least, Julius, we know what the panel thinks now. Any thoughts to share on this?
Well, I think, you have no other option but to continue advertising. Actually, in our experience, since the pandemic, we started to be more involved in digital online selling sites, so namely Lamudi, and we were very surprised to see that our leads actually increased. And from the total, I think around 2/3 of our total lead generation actually came from online listing sites. So if you're a seller, please continue to advertise. It's you're expanding your reach. The reach actually is not just local, it's international. And from what I've heard from our sales team, we're actually getting a lot of interest from Filipinos who are living abroad, who for one reason or another, they're still able to make investment decisions, and they're actually taking advantage of the good prices that they could avail of today. So if you're a seller, please continue to do so.
Okay, we have question. I'll jump to question number 2, which seems to be a very honest question from a buyer. And the question is, as a property buyer, what are my advantages and disadvantages of buying a property now versus waiting a little longer? So very honest question from a buyer who seems like they're considering the purchase decision. Jumping back to Franco. Franco, what are your thoughts here?
Yes, I'm always a advocate, or I believe that investing early is always good. You get the benefit of the best pricing available. There are not a lot of new projects launching, and many of the projects now are existing inventory of several projects. So I would advise that buyer to be on the close lookout for the newest possible projects, because these are the projects with good inventory, so you can choose the best corner location, the best the best area, or your feng shui to match your feng shui requirements. So I would say that if you have the capacity right now, meaning after looking after the health, security, your family's necessities, then I would encourage the home buying now. And waiting later, there might be a sharp rise when all these other variables come in, like like for example in Cebu City. I'm so proud of our city because we've managed to really minimize the health scare. So with that, it gives more confidence so traffic is back here, and property buyers are actually going around. I see some buyers making inquiries in our showroom. So it's okay to really go around now and to look for that dream home or to invest, especially that home loans are at a low. Cary mentioned, I think Pag-ibig is down to 5% or 4.99 if I'm not mistaken. You don't see those levels in the recent years. So I would encourage the property seeker to start looking.
Yeah. All right, thank you, Franco. So your advice for the property buyer right now is to buy early because you have a wider choice and better pricing. Yeah, Cary, the question, what would you say to the property seeker? What are my advantages of buying the property now versus waiting a little bit longer?
Yeah, I think simply put, I mean, the deals are available today. The deals won't be available when times are good. I mean, it's just like in the stock market, you don't buy when the market is overheating. You'll buy when there's blood on the street. Well, I hope that there's no blood on the street right now. But I mean, you have good deals from the developers. You have good deals from the banks. And so, I mean, if you have money that's just parked right now in the bank, you'll probably yield better if you put it into real estate, because like we said, the interest rates in the banks are very low. So make that more productive. And also, I mean, you'll have a good choice of products out in the market now because everyone is so aggressively selling their inventory. So yeah, it's really a buyer's market. I would think that probably going into early next year, hopefully when there are some developments on on the vaccine front, the moment that there is word of a successful vaccine, not even in commercialization, but the fact that there is a successful vaccine out there, the market I believe is going to shift very quickly. So take advantage today.
All right, so it seems like Cary's also on the buy now bandwagon, right? Jumping to Mico. Mico, the question is, as a buyer, what are my advantages of buying property now versus waiting a little longer? What is your advice to our viewer today?
Yes, similar to what Franco and Cary already said. Another thing I'd like to add to that is that most developers currently are holding off on any new project launches. So I think both from a business point of view and as well in terms of construction protocols, there's really not much we can do in terms of being aggressive on that front. We have to follow whatever safety and government direction that's been given to us with regards to those restrictions. So not having any project launches anytime soon, at least within the year, as some developers have already announced. There's going to be a limit on what you have. And if there's already a frenzy about buyers wanting to buy or buyers who have already bought, then one aspect that you can also look into is that those deals won't be there for possibly as long as you'd like, or probably up to the level that you're comfortable to dive in. So now that it's there, and now that the available choices are still plenty, then probably now is the time for you to do that. And maybe if you wait towards things when get a bit more open, and then there's less fear and confusion in the market, then as Cary mentioned, there will definitely be an adjustment. So, and you don't want to lose that opportunity. So whatever gains that you could get now, might as well get it already. If you have the capacity, if you're able to right now, then yes.
All right, thank you, Mico. Interesting insights over there. So, Julius, we have our second question from our audience today, and it sounds like it's coming from a buyer, property seeker. Now, the question is, what are the advantages? Should I buy property now versus wait a little longer? What advice would you give to this buyer?
Okay, I think at this point in time, there's a lot of pressure on developers to really drive up sales. So as you probably know right now, there are a lot of discounts. Developers are stretching their amortization payment terms. And not only that, like banks are also now they're more inclined to lend more to the real estate sector. So I think it's a perfect environment if you're a buyer right now to really take advantage of that. Like we've never seen interest rates go this low before. So, like I would, I'm actually personally, I'm looking at opportunities right now to acquire. So I think it's a good time as a property investor.
All right, thank you, Julius. Now it sounds like a resounding buy now from our panelists today, right? For the audience who asked this question. Thank you, Julius, for sharing your thoughts, and of course to all our panelists today. Thank you for taking part in our first panel, Revive Property Investment in a Post-Pandemic World. Now, once again, our panelists for today are first of all, Franco Soberano, EVP and COO of Cebu Landmasters, Inc. We have Cary Lagdameo, First Vice President of Damosa Land. We have Mico Racelis, Business Unit General Manager of Robinson's Homes. We have Julius Guevarra, VP for Corporate Planning from DM Wenceslao. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your participation on the panel today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye, guys.
Thank you
Bye,
for sharing your
Mico,
insights.
Julius.
Nice to meet you.
Bye.
Take care.
Cary, Franco, Mico, Deborah.